Thank you so much for being here. I know it's the evening for you, it's the morning for me. But congratulations, first of all, on the Sri Yantra Foundation that you just began. What inspired you to do that, and was that in the plans for a while?
Namaste, Jeremy, and greetings from India. Lovely to be talking to you again. I launched the Sri Chakra Yantra Foundation during the COVID months, actually, because a lot of people in India, especially those who are working in certain industries, say such as tourism, when they lost their jobs, we don't really have social security in India. So it was very difficult for them to just run their homes. They practically had to leave the city and go into the villages and start life afresh. And even feeding their families was becoming difficult. So this is when I thought I have to do something to help them. And money wouldn't help because, like in all societies, the lower class tend to drink it all up. You know, alcoholism is a big problem. So we started giving out rations to the families in terms of the food and whatever is required on a monthly basis. So that was the genesis of the foundation. And a lot of people wanted to pitch in and help out. And that's how the foundation was launched. And we're trying to help as many people as possible through the foundation.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So it really came from just the intention of wanting to help as many people as possible. And it seems like you're doing, not only the physical work, but the in terms of education, you're trying to like open as many people's minds as possible to certain ideas and certain and even just the symbol itself. If you had to say like what do you think the most important lesson or teaching is that you would hope the most amount of people are able to learn this year through your work?
I don't want to restrict it to this year, but I'd like to say that it's a very popular misconception that you need a guru in order to be on the spiritual path. And a lot of times it's not possible to have a guru for whatever reasons. And it's okay to learn for yourself and to be self realized and to come to an understanding just by your own study, your own interactions and understanding. So I think that is a very important message I want to convey through the foundation as well. Because in India, what we call Sri Vidya, or the study of the Sri Chakra, is a very esoteric science. And it's restricted to a very small number of people who can actually practice with a guru. I just want to break that myth. I want to put it out there that anyone with a genuine interest and who are sincerely dedicated to the path can do this.
It's interesting how many people have been exposed to the sign, to the symbol in different ways throughout their lives. Like I posted a video on TikTok just explaining, after our last conversation, explaining the things that you were telling me and the things that I studied. And I think it was like the most interaction I've ever received on a video. It had like 600,000 people were now either newly exposed to this symbol, but some of them, some of the top comments were, I saw this in a dream, or I remember seeing this when I was younger and didn't realize what it was, but now I feel connected, or it feels familiar. Like what is the first um known recording of the symbol within
It goes
history?
back to about 12,000 years, and it is mentioned in the Vedas, especially in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest of the Vedas. And you will find it in stone carvings because that was possibly the only form of art which has survived over a period of 1,000 years all across South India, particularly. So I think I have to share with you the fact that one person came up to me after reading my book and said, "This was what I saw when I was anesthetized. I was going in for a surgery, and what I saw was the Sri Yantra, and I didn't know it then. But after I read your book, I understood that this is precisely what I saw at the time I was losing my consciousness. So that was a very interesting thing for me, because somewhere it shows that it has very deep roots.
Yeah, and a bunch of the comments even were people who said that they were on, an acid or LSD trip, and that's what they saw on the wall, or that's what they saw in their mind. And so it's almost rooted in our consciousness in a way that we might never understand fully, but it's been way further along than us.
Absolutely. There's no question of that. And then we've spoken that symbols have been a part of every culture, and a part of, it's a part of every spiritual tradition. So this is taking it a bit further and actually symbolizing the entire universe and putting it together as a geometry. So if you look at the Fibonacci sequence, for example, or the golden ratio, this is precisely what they are all talking about. The Sri Yantra conforms to all the laws of the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio. So I think that is why it is such a commonly seen and commonly visualized image.
It's the perfect shape, so to speak.
Mhm.
And
The perfect.
how does it relate to the
Mhm.
oh, sorry, you go.
I said it's just natural geometry at its best.
How does it relate to the flower of life?
Again, it's a fractal. The flower of life, if you look at it, is nothing but fractal, right? So that again corresponds to the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. So you see a direct parallel between what you see in the geometry of the Sri Yantra and the flower of life, and various other things, even the growth of an embryo, for example, or the growth of a physical flower. You could relate all of that to what you see in the Sri Yantra, the geometry of the
Mm.
Yantra.
It's it's yeah, it's almost like the shape of creation in a sense. And
It's
I know you speak about on your website, you say like the universal mother within, that you use that term. I was really drawn by that term. What does that mean, and how does that relate to the shape?
so I just wanted to add that it's not merely creation, it could also be dissolution. So you could dissolve the universe and then you get the entire yantra, or you could look inwards and come down to the point of the dot, which is called the bindu, and look at it as creation. So both ways it works. But coming to your question, which I forgot, what was your question?
No, let's stay on that for a second, because
Mhm.
I was looking up some things about Hinduism that just were intriguing to me, and one is the concept of time. And
Yeah.
there was a couple of things I wanted to ask, but on that note, there was something I read about the concept of time being God, um, God's ability to create and also dissolve the universe. So does that kind of relate into that concept?
The concept of time is something which is really, really so interesting in the Hindu tradition. The word in Sanskrit is kala, time. And kala could be seen as a construct of humanity. It's not something which existed or does not exist. It's actually the duality of life itself. So in Hinduism, we believe that time itself is a human construct. So there is no time where the gods are concerned or where spirituality is concerned. It's timeless. There's no beginning and there's no end. We just speak of the duality of the start and the finish, but there is really no such thing. And in some ways, this yantra is also an explanation of the fact that kala always exists and never existed. It's again the same story of creation and dissolution. And both eventually are illusion.
So so with Kala, is it because I almost like have been reading about it as as a cyclical thing, and like that cycle is like how is it visualized or taught to you within Hinduism in terms of like the start and the end of things? Like, is that even, are those terms even utilized, or is it more so just this always existing concept?
So, like I said, our tradition is one of an oral tradition where everything is passed on from a guru to the student. And what we are taught is that time itself is relative. And time, as seen in Hinduism, there is no start and there is no end to the universe. So, this is what we are taught. And everything that we feel is a human construct, what we think of as time. But the only way in which we regard time, we respect time, is because of, say, the cycles of the moon or the cycles of the sun. So, that is purely to help us as humans relate to Kala in a more general fashion, because otherwise it becomes too esoteric to explain to everyone that
Yeah.
there is no beginning and there is no end, because it's hard to come to terms with something like that, something as radical a thought as that.
Yeah, it's that is interesting, and it's almost when you think really deeply about the construct of time that we've created, especially like in Western society with clocks and being on time and meetings and all of that stuff, it almost seems like just a way for us to somehow understand or grasp it, because otherwise we'd be too lost.
But in a way, I think I was reading about a study where there were a few people who were shut away in a cave for a couple of weeks with no concept of day or night, but they recorded time as 24 hours and 40 minutes in a day,
Whoa.
which is very close to what is the time of the moon. So I don't think we're really far away from that construct, even though it's a human construct. We're really quite close to what the universe is also following.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I mean, you would probably think like, okay, even if we didn't have clocks, we would probably rest during the nighttime and be awake during the daytime. So it might not be exactly the same sleep cycle and stuff, but we'd probably live a similar life.
Right. Like all other sentient beings, there would be, our the biorhythms would kick in, our circadian rhythms would kick in, the melatonin would take over. So we would pretty much lead similar lives, whether the clocks exist or
Yeah.
not.
In Hinduism, speaking of sleeping, like, are there specific dream rituals or beliefs about dreams?
Oh, there are several. And in fact, there are very interesting stories which go back to the Upanishads about the actual nature of dreaming itself. There is a story of a very famous king. He's also a rishi who is, like a visionary sage and a seer, a learned man called Janaka. So, King Janaka has a dream one day that he's lost everything and he's become a beggar. So when he wakes up, he says, which is the real me? Is the beggar the real me, or is this form, is this avatar as the king the real me? And there are no answers. He asks every wise man in his kingdom until a rishi called Yajnavalka comes in and he says to him that neither that where you were a beggar, nor this where you are a king are real. Both are just, states of being. So you have the waking state, you have the sleeping state, you have the dream state. But there is something inside of you which is participating in these three states. So that is the fourth state, which is called Turiya. And that could be corresponded to our consciousness, because there is something which is watching us at all these times, right? If not, you wouldn't know. If you were in deep sleep, you wake up and then you're suddenly in touch with reality and where you are. So it's the turiya state which is awake all the time, and it's watching you through all these other three states.
That's a really interesting concept. So that's almost like the observer
Yes.
experiencing you in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. The other thing that I was reading was the at is it called the Atma, or is that the soul?
The Atma, yes.
So is that a similar concept, or are those two different things?
The Atma, so how we explain it is like this: there is Param Atma, which is the universal consciousness. And then there is Atma, which is, let's say, let's look at it like there's gold. Okay, so Param Atma is gold, gold made into a ring which has all the qualities of the gold, is the Atma. And then there is the Jiva, which is this life form which we have taken. So these are the three elements that we see in Hinduism: Paramatma, the Atma, and the Jiva. And the eventual goal of every Jiva is for the Atma to become one with the Paramatma, for our own personal consciousness to become one with the universal consciousness. When the Atma finally, after all its cycles of life, merges with the universal consciousness, that's when you get moksha. So, a simple way of putting this is that Paramatma is the ocean, Atma is just a drop in this ocean, right? So eventually the drop will go back and become a part of the ocean.
Mm. And when you reach that state of becoming one with the universal consciousness, that's when your soul, so to speak, would be free, or live in a different existence.
It would be liberated from this existence. Because in Hinduism, we talk of the various lokas. So there are, they say 14 lokas, 7 lokas, at which, we are one of the lokas at this point of time as a human. And then we go into different realms of consciousness with each life that we take, if our actions are good, if we have good karma.
the the karma, speaking of karma, last time when we spoke about the universal karma that we may be experiencing right now, it seems like we are still on the same path as a global nation to experience this karma. It doesn't seem like it's gotten better yet.
It's not going to go away until we learn our lessons. And when these lessons are learned, it will go away on its own, and then we move on to bigger and better things.
Do you think that's in the cards for us within the next however many years?
Most certainly, I think in India, everyone says that this is the time when spirituality is on the uptake, and we see that all around us. I mean, even in just the number of requests I'm getting for spiritual counseling and guidance, it's possibly 100% more than what it was
Wow.
before COVID. So I think there is an uptake on everyone wanting to explore spirituality and I think they've come to an understanding through corona that happiness does not exist outside of themselves, and everyone wants to find that path to internal bliss. And that's when this turn is happening, where people are really looking inwards and saying, okay, now is possibly the time when I need to explore what this is all about.
Yeah, if anything, that's the one thing I say is the benefit as well. Like I wouldn't have necessarily had the same spiritual awakening. I know a lot of people who I've spoken to wouldn't have had the time to reflect properly, and and you really see like people people are coming to understandings that they may not fully realize what it is, but they know that there's something more, like both internally and externally in the universe, and it's interesting to see like how that'll affect the world when things do kind of cycle back to somewhat of a normal existence, if 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 everyone will kind of carry this new spirituality into the new world almost.
I think it's sparking the interest. And that in itself is a great thing, because I think in the past couple of decades, the world has been supremely ruled by materialist desires. And somewhere this was a wake up call, this was the spark which we all needed to be ignited for us to move on this path of spiritual evolution.
Yeah, yeah, and especially with like the veil thinning and even like with astrology and astronomy, like it's all kind of lining up for right now to be the time that people can really figure things out for themselves.
Right.
One other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the law of attraction and universal laws. I see you speak a lot about it on Instagram, and you always have great insight into it. Just on a basic level to start, what is the law of attraction, and how can people implement it into their daily lives?
How I look at it, Jeremy, is if you understand and accept that this universe we live in is one of infinite possibilities, then manifestation is for real. If you don't accept that there is infinite potential in this world that we live in, then manifestation is something that you should not even attempt. The basic thought behind this is all the latest studies in quantum physics point to the fact that this world we live in is boundless and we live in infinite possibility. Now, if you look at, for example, the double slit experiment or any of the experiments in quantum physics, it is shown that the observer has a great deal of influence on what he is observing. For example, the wave turns into a particle only based on the observer, right? So if you take this as the premise, then it's possible for anyone to create anything just purely out of their desire for it. Now, coming to the law of attraction, I think if you go by The Secret or if you go by all these sites where they talk of the law of attraction, it's very materialistically driven. If you observe, they are asking for money or they're asking for a car or a house. I think when we talk of manifestation, that is at a slightly higher spiritual dimension, where you move away from all these material desires and look at something more experiential, which will possibly give you greater gratification. So while there is nothing wrong in seeking the material, I think we have to look at the law of attraction from a slightly higher perspective. But yes, the law of attraction does have its pluses, in the sense that even for something as simple as the fact that it propagates positive thinking, right? The fact that placebos work is proof that the law of attraction works, proof that manifestation works. So I see law of attraction as just a subsect of manifestation. And there are a million other ways to manifest. It could be, through meditation, through prayer, through any other practice. But law of attraction is something which has caught the public's eye because it's very simplified. It just says visualize something and then let go of it and surrender. And I think the important thing to note here is that the law of attraction doesn't give you the things you want, it doesn't hand it over to you. It takes you to the place where you could meet someone. It creates a synchronicity, it creates a coincidence, which allows you to go and achieve what you want. So it's not possible to just sit back and say, okay, today I'm just going to sit and meditate and then this is going to happen. No, that effort needs to be put into doing whatever it is that you're doing, but the universe will help you on that path. You might meet the person who will fund your next venture, or you might be at the right time at the right place for something to happen. So the universe will help you, but you also have to take responsibility and do something about it.
Yeah, that's a really important point that I think gets lost because like the other thing is like the law of action, and if you don't take the step, like I always say, motion creates motion. If you don't take that first step at least, then the universe isn't going to take the second step. And but I think you described it perfectly because it's almost like opening yourself to these possibilities and surrendering yourself to the synchronicities and allowing those things to happen versus if like you said the baseline, if you don't even have the belief that this is true, it's not going to be true.
Right.
That's what are some other universal laws that you either believe within Hinduism or in within your own life that you practice?
I think because I'm a practicing Hindu and because of meditation, I believe in the law of karma. I think that is something that one really can't get away from. It's a law of action versus the outcome. And it sets the tone for how you lead your life. And it in turn also tells you how to be a better human being on this planet, not merely with your action towards other humans, but towards all sentient beings, towards the universe in general. And that is through the following of certain disciplines, yamas, niyamas, all the yoga practices, the meditation. So these are some things which are non-negotiable, and these are some things which, if everyone practiced, even to a small degree, we would all be far happier, far more content. There would be less disparity between the haves and the have-nots. So the law of karma is one important uh, law which you know, I think is very valid to everyone.
How do you think people can think about it on a daily basis within their actions, like to really affect how they're living in a more positive way? Should it be, do you think, or in your life, do you think about it on like a decision to decision basis, and in each decision you put an intention behind it and try to do the most good possible, or how do you kind of think about it within your daily life?
If you go by the Yoga Sutras, we have something called the Yamas and Niyamas, which actually simplify it for us. We have fewer decisions to make on a daily basis, which just makes it so much easier to just live.
Yeah,
You know, you have a routine, you have a certain ritual, but I think important is ahimsa, which is non-violence. And non-violence, not just in terms of action, but also in thought and speech. That for me is very, very important, because in the process of speaking, and speaking untruths or speaking harsh words, we really hurt people. And then this has like a domino effect, and it goes on to hurt many people. So if we practice non-violence in thought, speech, and action, that in itself on a daily basis would help a great deal in simplifying your life and also in the entire process of living itself.
that's a really beautiful way to put it. I think people um, will take something from that. Practicing nonviolence in speech and action in every aspect of your life, and even towards yourself too. I think a lot of people have harsh words towards themselves.
Most importantly, in fact, my favorite chakra is the Anahata chakra, the heart chakra. And the one lesson of the heart chakra is to love yourself regardless of everything. We are all born with flaws, with warts, with all kinds of issues, but acceptance is something which is so beautiful. So when you start accepting your own self, when you start loving yourself, it follows naturally that you start dispensing the same love towards all the people around you. So, yes, you're absolutely right. Acceptance starts with oneself, and ahimsa starts with oneself. So, When you wake up in the morning, when you look at yourself, don't say, hey, yuck, I look awful today, because that's not what's going to help your mind in any way. It's okay if you don't say anything, but don't start with, negativity and by being harsh to yourself or hating yourself. It doesn't serve any purpose.
It's yeah, it's so true, and the little things, even like affirming certain things to yourself, I feel like really helps you can change your mindset about yourself too.
Yes. And I think the strongest affirmation is the simplest one: I am enough.
Mm.
Whatever I am at today, with whatever I am given, I am enough. And that takes a lot of learning. It does not come easily to accept that what I have, what I am, is enough.
That's one I struggle with sometimes, even like on a simple basic factor of thinking like uh what I have and appreciating what I have versus wanting the next thing or wanting to grow or wanting more. How do you come to terms with that balance?
I have a very simple mantra. I tell myself every moment of the day, I am nothing, I have nothing, I need nothing. And when I say this, a lot of people say, oh, that's so negative. I get a very strong reaction from people saying, oh, that's completely wrong. But for me, it works because I am nothing makes me humble. It makes me forget, that I have so many followers on Instagram, or, so many people listening to me. It really humbles me. I have nothing means that I am not looking for anything more. I don't need anything materially, and I need nothing is self explanatory. So, these three statements which I make to myself every day keep me grounded. They tend to balance me. And I think these are the most positive things you can say to yourself, even though on the surface they appear to be, quite counterintuitive and something you shouldn't be saying to yourself.
No, I love that. I love that because anything else is a bonus at that point. You don't need
Yes.
anything, so anything you get is it's oh, that's great.
And I think what I've discovered in life is when you stop running behind things, that's when things start running behind you. I don't know if this is a law of nature or, it's true even in relationships. It's the moment you detach and you say, okay, I think I can manage without this, is the time when it comes to you. Because somehow it's like the desperation is gone.
Yeah.
And that energy in itself, as it dissipates, brings you better things.
It's visually it's powerful too. Like you imagine like in your everyday life, there's so many scenarios, like you said, a relationship or a job or whatever you're when you chase after it, it just keeps running away from you. That's powerful. I love talking to you because I learned so many things that I can like legitimately use in my day-to-day life and
I learn from you too, Jeremy. It's a two.
I really appreciate that. That humbles me. Um, but yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things that you said that people can, and I know like even the last time we spoke, it was definitely a lot of people connected to it, and a lot of people were messaging me and thanking you for what you were saying. So again, I really appreciate your time and your energy. Is there anything else that you've been, super passionate about lately that you want to close off by speaking about?
I have been working on my third book, which should be out in a couple of months. And this book deals with a very interesting subject called Tantra. Tantra is so utterly misunderstood in the West. The actual meaning of Tantra is a framework for rituals or for worship. And Tantra in the West, unfortunately, has come to mean, sexuality. It's related to sexuality. While I understand that sexuality is one part of human nature which we cannot ignore, I think there needs to be a greater understanding of the methods of Tantra and how, even in today's day and age, even though this Tantra dates back to about 5,000, 6,000 years ago, it holds a lot of strong messages and it carries a lot of relevance in today's day and age. So this is something that I'm really excited about. I'm working on Tantra, Yantra, and Mantra. So the Yantra is the geometric diagram, and Mantra is the uttered word, which in the Hindu tradition, it's not just about the meaning of the word, it's also the utterance. It's also the sound of the word and the vibration that it creates. So I'm trying to bring all of this information together in a cohesive fashion for people who are new to this subject and who possibly are looking for the meaning and not really be are not able to understand it. It's not explained in a simple fashion. This is a very complex esoteric subject, so this is something that I'm working on at the moment.
That's amazing. Wow, I can't wait for people to be able to read it. Just to for them to take right now if they're, starting their journey and looking into it. What is the most, you know, I know it's so misunderstood. So what is something they can kind of learn about Tantra that um, might help them explore it in a different way rather than the westernized version?
You can apply Tantra to every aspect of your life, from breathing to eating to the way you carry yourself, through your relationships at work. So, if you create a framework for yourself within Tantra, within the given nature of a certain activity, it makes life very simple. So this is the message that I want to pass on, that Tantra is not only about sex. Yes, it's one aspect of it, but you can apply Tantra to every aspect of living, starting from how you start your day to how you end your day, and brings about greater clarity, brings about greater stability, more peace of mind, more joy, and more internal bliss.
Mm. It almost feels like like putting passion and energy and intention into everything you do.
In a way, it's an extension of mindfulness as well, but this is a slightly more, say, a deeper version of it, where you already have a set way of doing things, and then you do it with mindfulness and with utter consciousness.
Mm. I like utter consciousness is a good, and I like that better than mindfulness, honestly, fully. What do you think the most misunderstood concept is that the West has completely butchered and at this point is so far from its original meaning?
The word yoga itself. Because if you go by the philosophy of yoga, it's an entire way of life. And the West has understood yoga only as the postures, only the physical exercises. Yoga has 8 limbs, which start with yama niyama and then go on to samadhi, which is when you actually become one with the universe. So all of those are forgotten, and we are only stuck with asanas and to some extent with pranayama, which is the control of the breath. So for me, I feel really, really sad when I hear, about different schools of yoga and how, they're all propagating something which is only a means of exercise. That is absolutely what yoga is not. There's so much more to it. So yeah, if we could dispel that myth a little bit and
Yeah.
get people to understand that there's so much more to yoga. It's not just the asanas, the postures that you do, or the breathing. It's a complete way of life. It's like, it teaches you how to lead your life and to eventually how to, pass into your, next janam or your next life in a seamless fashion.
Yeah, it almost seems like any practice of yoga that isn't holistic or isn't incorporating all of these other aspects is just I don't want to say like ruining it, but it's like it's depriving people of all of these other aspects that they can learn about. And I didn't even know about some of the things that you're talking about within yoga. So I'm sure that, you know, people who practice every day might not. So I hope people can hear this and then do some research on their own on how to incorporate more.
See, the thing is, yoga in the Indian tradition is only a preparation for meditation. It's to still your body and to keep your body in good health, because meditation requires you to have a healthy and a strong body. You can't meditate if you're not healthy and strong, right? So, yoga is the asanas are only meant to give you that stillness and that strength and that flexibility and the poise. But what has happened over the years is that various teachers have propagated uh, Ashtanga yoga, or Anusara yoga, or various names. And because I live in Mysore, where there is a school of yoga called Ashtanga yoga with the Guruji Patabi Joyce, who's the founder, I've seen a lot of people come here and ostensibly practice yoga, but they're not doing anything other than the postures. They're not following any of the other things which yoga postulates. For example, they're rude to the locals, and they get into fights with people, and that's not yoga. Because if you're just coming to do the physical practice, then, well, what can I say except that you're in a deep misconception and you have to grow out of that.
Yeah, they're lost.
Totally. And I think a lot of people who are lost or directionless tend to take up spirituality, which also accounts for the number of, slightly crazy people who we see and meet in our path. But this is not said, from a point of judgment, but it's a statement of fact, because a lot of people looking for direction would think that possibly spirituality has the answers, and if they were really successful at what they were doing, or they were really happy in their own space, they wouldn't even look at it. So yeah, we deal with a lot of such people
It's the
in
same
the
thing as most religions, I'm sure, where it's a way for people to find meaning in their life and find a community. And like you said, if you're not doing it either for the right reasons, or you're not really looking and you're not really searching, you're just surface level attaching yourself to something, it can be almost as harmful, it seems like, as not having it at all.
or even more harmful at times, because I have seen this happen as well, where they get so utterly disillusioned with life when a certain thing doesn't work out. They're so disappointed, and they feel that, oh, India was not what I expected. India is not the answer to my questions. Well, the answer doesn't lie in India. The answer lies within you. So that's what you have to explore. It does. Coming to India is not going to give you the answers. You could sit where you are and find the answers, but you have to look. That's the important thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I guess a lot of people do probably travel to India for some spirit quest to try to find themselves or find the answers. And maybe they do have some experience, but you know, a lot of them aren't able to translate that back into their own life in the West, or in their day-to-day life, because it wasn't an internal experience at all.
Right. And what they're taking away is only the external things that they see with their senses. And the first thing that strikes them about India is that some people live in poverty, other people live very, lavish lives. So it comes as a culture shock to most people. But I know a lot of other people who come here to practice yoga or meditation, and who go away taking the right message and having understood the essence of what India has to offer. But typically, people only have a very surface understanding of what India is all about. And that's not, usually a very positive picture that they take away. It's what they show you in Slumdog Millionaire, about only poverty stricken people, only, people who don't have enough food on their table. So that's not the reality of India, really.
Well,
Like,
or sorry, you continue.
sorry. Yeah, you go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like people pass that judgment, but like I live in Los Angeles, and the class difference is just as jarring here. You could literally be on the same street for 10 minutes and see tens of homeless people, and then see the wealthiest homes you've ever seen in your life, and it's all on the same street. So it's not like, people can judge in another country. We're just as bad.
The poverty in India is much more visible.
Mm,
So that's probably the differentiating factor. In the West, we don't see it so much. By and large, life looks equal and equitable distribution of wealth.
yeah.
But in India, the disparity is quite high. But we're getting there. We're getting better, and I think with time, things will eventually resolve itself, and we are heading to become, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So I'm sure we'll make it soon.
Yeah, I think so too. Cause is the caste system still that existed there?
In certain aspects of living, yes. But by and large, in general, it's not something that is palpable on an everyday life situation. For example, we all know what caste we belong to. For example, I'm a Kshatriya, which is the warrior caste, where the kings and the ministers and all of that. And then there's the highest caste, of course, is the Brahmins, and they are the priestly class. So it's every conversation begins with, "Oh, so are you a Brahmin? You look like a Brahmin," Yes, to that extent. But I don't think there's any, the prejudices which were there earlier of, the untouchables. All of that no longer exists, and it's a fairly equitable society in that sense of the word now. And we have a lot of reservations, uh, reserved seats for the backward classes, and so they have been able to come up in life to a point where they are also in positions of power, so they take their tribe along with them. So we are at a good space where that is concerned. I think that has been addressed quite well.
Good. Yeah, no, and it seems like it honestly seems like there is progression throughout a lot of the world happening, especially right now, where people who didn't have a voice before are, gaining some power, or at least gaining a voice.
Right. Thanks to social media. But there's also the flip side to that. So, which we've all in the past couple of months.
Yeah,
So,
everyone has a voice.
that's the thing with technology. It's a double-edged sword.
Yes, but technology is allowing us to speak right now. So
Right? So,
I'll say it's a blessing.
to be grateful.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And I am actually deciding which Sri Yantra I'm gonna order from your website. I haven't decided yet. I'm thinking the gold one, but I don't know yet which one.
So tell me which one you want, and I will have it shipped to you. That's
Okay,
my little gift for you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Um,
Lovely talking to you, Jeremy, as always. And I wish you and your loved ones and all our listeners an abundance of all things enriching. And I hope that we are all able to move ahead on the spiritual path and have a great year ahead of all of us.
Amen. I
Thank you.
completely agree. Thank you. And I am going to take a quick nap before I start the day.
Uh,
Okay. Peace
I
and love.
hope you have some lucid dreams, and maybe we talk about that the next time.
That's a manifestation. I'm putting it out there as well.
So look forward to that and continue to manifest and continue to have some good experiences with the yantra.
Thank you. You too, and blessings to your family, your loved ones. I know that your voice is powerful, so I'm just excited to spread it to as many people as I can. And oh, and people can find you on Instagram and your website if you want to give those right now.
That's correct. So we don't have TikTok in India. It's banned. So I don't really know what's happening on TikTok. But listeners can follow me on my website, which is vinitarashinkar.in, with a fairly extensive blog covering pretty much everything that we've discussed. And on Instagram at the Sri Chakra Yantra Foundation.
Perfect.
So
And
this.
I will spread you through TikTok. Don't worry. Your message is getting there.
And congratulations on reaching 50,000 followers. That's a big one.
Thank you. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I wasn't really planning it, but people started connecting to the spirituality stuff and even some of the music stuff I talk about. But I just really am trying to because I know it's a younger generation, so I'm just trying to plant some seeds for people who are interested to do their own research and do their own exploring.
Fabulous. So continue to be this wonderful, multidimensional human that you are, and wishing you really well on the spiritual path. And thank you once again for this opportunity, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much. All right.
Bye
Talk